Chamora, you humiliated me. You embarrassed me in front of our in-laws. Are you aware of their identity? Mother, you wish for me to wed a lunatic solely due to his riches. She called out, her voice trembling. Why would you treat me this way? Is this the extent of your disdain for me? That lunatic, as you refer to him, is the sole son of Chief Ozabi, she exclaimed. Are you aware of the implications of that? Contemplate the universe. In a stunning African village, hidden away in the depths of eastern Nigeria, there resided a young maiden named Nayade. The village, enveloped by vibrant green forests, exuded tranquility and allure, and Nayade's glowing appearance only enhanced its enchantment. She stood tall and graceful, her skin smooth and silky, reminiscent of polished ebony, glistening in the sunlight. Her beauty captivated the village and stirred envy in countless hearts. Young men journeyed from distant lands, bringing offerings of palm wine, to seek a hand in marriage. Nayade, however, found none of them appealing. Whenever a suitor arrived at her doorstep, she dismissed him, frequently with the utmost disdain. She would hurl insults, ridicule their modest ways of living, and dismiss them with sharp remarks. One unfortunate suitor, a diligent palm wine tapper, encountered her fury in a manner that would be etched in the memories of everyone in the village. Nayade, wielding a steaming pot of water, pursued him along the path that led from her compound, her voice ringing out with fierce intensity, I never want to lay eyes on your wretched, destitute legs here again, beast. Her furious cries reverberated through the village, leaving everyone in disbelief. Nayade held her conviction with unwavering strength. She would only wed a man of affluence, someone capable of providing the opulent lifestyle she envisioned. She had no interest in a farmer, a fisherman, or a palm wine tapper, particularly if they were struggling financially. She desired a partner who could envelop her in luxurious garments, embellish her with radiant jewels, and ensure she had attendants to handle every task. Mabofo was deeply concerned about her daughter's high standards. Mabofo, a widow who had raised Nayade alone since her husband passed away, frequently sat with her hands folded, worry visible on her face. One morning, she found herself unable to contain her thoughts any longer. Nayade, she called softly, her voice tinged with concern. Are you suggesting that among all the suitors who have sought your hand in marriage, not a single one is worthy of you? Nayade, undeterred, responded, No mama, they are all struggling. I have no desire to marry someone who lacks financial stability. The majority of them engage in fishing, wine tapping, or struggle as farmers. Behold me now, do I not radiate beauty? I seek a partner who can support me and provide the life I desire. Mabofo was surprised by her daughter's response. My child, she murmured gently, attempting to persuade her. Wealth does not ensure joy, and someone lacking riches today may find themselves prosperous by tomorrow. A decent individual who puts in the effort and can supply the essentials food, shelter, and clothing is sufficient. Keep in mind that beauty diminishes as time passes, Nayade. Your father and I may not have had an abundance, but we found joy in what we had. However, Nayade resolutely shook her head. Mom, I'm not you and Dad, and I won't live the way you did. Can't you see Kara, the wife of Odugu? Observe her attire, her accessories, her existence. She avoids the farm, she refrains from collecting water from the stream. She employs a maid to handle all her tasks, and she also has a driver to transport her wherever she desires. I aspire to live that kind of life. Mabofo exhaled heavily. Nayade, my daughter, she said, her tone laden with worry. Kara possesses a certain luck, indeed, yet not all are graced with her unique brand of fortune. Did you know that Odugu had very little when he tied the knot with his first wife? After years of relentless effort, he finally received the favor of the gods. Kara entered his life after he had already achieved success. A person you overlook today as lacking could rise to affluence by tomorrow. The divine operates in enigmatic manners. Yet Nayade remained steadfast. And that is precisely why I refuse to rely on a man to achieve wealth. Mama, she said, her voice taking on an edge. I desire a man who is fully developed. I desire a man akin to Odugu. Kara lacks 2 heads, so why can't I lead a similar life? She lifted her hand in exasperation, interrupting her mother before a reply could escape her lips. Kindly, Mama, allow me the freedom to select my own husband. Don't urge me to accept anything beneath my worth. With that, she burst out of the room, leaving her mother in a quiet, stunned stillness. Mabofo propped her chin in her hand, gazing vacantly at the earth beneath her. A profound exhale slipped from her mouth, her heart burdened with an increasing weight. Her affection for her daughter was profound, and her greatest wish was for her to find joy. Yet, she couldn't dispel the notion that Naiade's pride and stubbornness could steer her toward a future filled with remorse. Naiade disregarded her mother's counsel, dismissing it as if it were mere grains of sand carried off by the breeze. She persistently dismissed every suitor who approached her with modest gifts. She envisioned herself wed to a man of considerable fortune and prominence. She felt her aspirations were far too grand for the ordinary men of her village. On a radiant morning, Naiade's cherished dream at last became a reality. Word circulated that a prosperous farmer from a nearby realm, known as Nduka, had come, hoping to win her heart in matrimony. Nduka was more than an ordinary farmer. He possessed wealth beyond compare, with expansive estates and reaping bountiful treasures from the earth. He had listened to whispers of Naiade's beauty, narratives that depicted her as a gem among women. Fascinated, he concluded that she would be a splendid enhancement to his home. He arrived with something in tow. A grand truck brimming with opulent gifts, rolls of exquisite fabric, containers of rare beverages, bags of gleaming gold coins, and baskets overflowing with fragrant delicacies made its way into Naiade's family compound. The sight of such wealth filled Naiade with an exhilarating sense of joy. Her eyes glimmered with joy as she twirled with enthusiasm, her laughter echoing in the atmosphere like a sweet melody. In that instant, she experienced a sense of euphoria, as if she were soaring above everything else. Her aspirations for an extravagant existence had transformed into reality. They had become her truth. Their union was a magnificent affair, one that would be the talk of the village for generations. The whole village came together to witness the union. Astonished by the opulence of this festivity, tables brimmed with a variety of dishes, including goat meat, zesty jollof rice, fresh fish, and hot yam porridge. Barrels of palm wine stood proudly alongside bottles of imported drinks. The music resonated with vibrant energy, as drummers skillfully struck their talking drums while flutists wove enchanting melodies that invited everyone to sway along. Naiade and Nduka twirled at the heart of the celebration, their faces beaming and their steps radiating pure delight. The villagers were unable to contain their murmurs, exchanging hushed words with one another. At last, Naiade achieved the moment she had been longing for. She possesses such beauty, and her spouse is affluent. Behold those presents. Who wouldn't envy her position? Following the wedding, Naiade settled in with her husband. She possessed all that her heart desired. Naiade was Nduka's third wife, and she accepted it without concern. Indeed, she reveled in her status as the youngest and most adored among them all. Nduka lavished her with care and warmth, honoring her as the queen she envisioned herself to be. He gifted her exquisite garments crafted from the finest silk, embellished her with radiant jewelry, and arranged for attendants to fulfill her every desire. Wherever Naiade ventured, eyes were drawn to her, and admirers marveled at her allure. Flattery poured in abundance, and her self-assurance reached new heights. Nduka held a profound admiration for Naiade. He never permitted her to approach the farm or even made an effort. He would often tell her to always look her best. He devoted more time to her than to his other wives, frequently seeking solace in his private chambers to enjoy meals and laughter together in solitude. Nduka fulfilled Naiade's desires without a moment's pause. It appeared that he was incapable of refusing her anything. The other wives, who had once occupied the very heart of Nduka's existence, observed in quietude, their hearts burdened with envy. They murmured quietly, expressing their sorrow over the many changes that had unfolded since Naiade's arrival. "He hardly pays us any attention these days," they complained. "It's constantly Naiade this, Nayati that. Yet, no one had the courage to express their grievances openly. Nduka commanded authority, and his wrath was dreaded. The wives masked their resentment with feigned smiles, concealing the bitterness that simmered within as they watched the woman who had captured their husband's focus. For Nayati, life was nothing short of ideal. She reveled in the abundance, affection, and adoration that enveloped her, convinced she had attained the joy she had always envisioned. Several months following their lavish wedding, Nayati found herself expecting. The announcement swept through the home like a wave of enthusiasm, particularly for Nduka, whose delight was palpable. As soon as Nayati revealed her news, Nduka dedicated himself to prioritizing her comfort. He prohibited her from engaging in any demanding tasks and enveloped her in tenderness. Mate catered to her every desire, ensuring she felt like royalty during the entire pregnancy. When the moment arrived, Nayati welcomed a lovely baby girl into the world. Nduka felt an overwhelming surge of happiness as he cradled the tiny child in his arms for the very first time. She was given the name Chamora, signifying good fortune. The name resonated with optimism and potential. The villagers gathered in joyous celebration with the family, and once more, the air was thick with whispers of Nayati's remarkable fortune. Some years later, Nayati welcomed another baby girl, whom they named Oji. Nduka's joy blossomed with the birth of each child, and he expressed his affection for his wife and daughters with unwavering devotion. For more than a decade, Nayati's life unfolded like a captivating dream. Nduka cared for her with the same dedication as in the early days of their marriage. He persisted in showering her with lavish gifts, providing her with the finest of everything, as the other wives observed from a distance, their expressions marked by a deep yearning and subtle jealousy. While Nduka showed affection for his other wives and children, it was evident that Nayati and her daughters occupied the core of his existence. Nayati reveled in the spotlight, embracing the opulent lifestyle she had always dreamed of. She never envisioned that anything could go awry. Yet, on a fateful day, calamity befell us. Nduka became unwell. Initially, it appeared to be nothing of consequence, just a slight ailment that would fade away in a matter of days. The family persevered, holding on to the hope that he would soon regain his strength. As days morphed into weeks, and weeks stretched into months, it became evident that Nduka's condition was not getting any better. His vitality diminished, and a once lively figure now lay restricted to his bed. The family's wealth started to diminish as physicians, herbal practitioners, and remedies consumed their finances. Nayati's joy shifted into exasperation. She had ceased to be the joyful, cherished spouse. Instead, she became bitter, observing the world she had once cherished fade into the distance. With each day that went by, her anger grew more intense. She lamented to herself in solitude, feeling the weight of her thoughts as she considered how he would exhaust all his resources before his time was up. How can I possibly manage to care for my children after everything that has happened? This isn't the existence I envisioned for myself. Nduka, frail and confined to his bed, yearned for the solace of his beloved wife. He called for Nayati, yearning to catch a glimpse of her face, yet she remained elusive, refusing to appear. Her maids had long departed, for there were no funds remaining to compensate them, and Nayati showed no inclination to tend to him or prepare any meals. I didn't arrive here to endure pain. I never signed up to be a nanny, she snapped, as Iko, Nduka's first wife, approached her. Iko had been devotedly looking after Nduka, yet he continues to request to see Nayati. Nayati's reply was frigid and unyielding. If he wants to squander his last bit of money before he dies, he can do that without my involvement, she stated coldly. Inform him that I prefer not to meet with him. With that, she marched back into her hut, forcefully shutting the door behind her. Iko remained frozen, disbelief washing over him. She was in disbelief at the words that had just reached her ears. This was the woman who had been the heart of Nduka's existence, the wife he cherished above all else. Yet, here she stood, utterly indifferent to his fate, whether he lived or perished. Her only apparent concern was the money. Shaking her head, Iko murmured to herself, Nduka is receiving precisely what he deserves. More than a year has passed, and Nduka's situation showed no signs of improvement. Each day, he whispered Naiadi's name, his voice frail and heavy with yearning, yet she remained absent. He passed away a sorrowful and shattered individual, his heart weighed down by disillusionment. At the moment of his passing, all funds had been depleted. All efforts had been exhausted in the frantic struggle to rescue him. What lingered were the farmlands, allocated among his wives. Every woman was tasked with nurturing the earth and caring for her children. For Naiadi, the truth was shattering. This was far from the life she had imagined when she said, "I do," to Nduka. She envisioned a life filled with boundless wealth and comfort, not one of battling for existence. As she gazed upon the farmland that had become her sole means of survival, it dawned on her, too late, that her avarice and arrogance had brought her to a destination she had never wished to reach. The existence she believed she had firmly grasped faded away, leaving her with nothing but a sense of remorse. Initially, Naiadi resolutely declined to tend to the land that had been bequeathed to her. The idea of stooping to work the earth was intolerable. Her fury engulfed her, intensifying with each passing day. In her humble hut, she brooded and simmered, reflecting on the life she had envisioned and contrasting it with her current reality. The disparity was harsh. This life, rife with struggle and hardship, stood in stark contrast to the opulent existence that Kara, Odogo's wife, had once relished. Despite Odogo's passing, Kara found herself with ample wealth, enjoying a life of comfort. "That man, Nduka, is so wicked and selfish," Naiadi whispered to herself as she sat alone, her voice quivering with resentment. She ought to have succumbed when the illness began, yet he lingered on, squandering everything in his wake. She let out a sharp hiss, her fists tightening in exasperation. In the meantime, Nduka's other wives, Iko and Uju, had progressed with their lives. They embraced their new circumstances and dedicated themselves to their sections of the farmland, striving to nourish their children and reconstruct their lives. Yet Naiadi, engulfed in her pride and fury, declined to venture outside and join their ranks. She remained in her hut, brooding and simmering in resentment. Panga, however, is an unyielding presence. It stealthily infiltrated her home, relentlessly gnawing at her and her children. The once abundant meals had vanished, leaving Naiadi with no choice but to part with her exquisite garments and sparkling jewelry, one item at a time, to secure sustenance. Initially, it appeared she could hold her ground, but before long, all her resources were depleted. Panga turned into an ever-present companion, and a sense of desperation started to take hold. Naiadi sought assistance from her co-wives, yet they refused to provide her with food or money. Ultimately, she had distanced herself and regarded them with contempt for years. In a moment of desperation, Naiadi found herself with no options remaining. Setting aside her ego, she pulled herself from the huts and started tending to her share of the farmland. The task was grueling and utterly draining. For an individual accustomed to comfort, this new existence felt nearly intolerable. As the months went by, life began to take its toll on Naiadi. She transformed into a mere echo of the lively woman she used to be. Bitterness solidified her heart, transforming her into a resentful, contentious woman. She would strike out at anyone who dared to cross her path, igniting conflicts over the most trivial matters with everyone around her. In her thoughts, existence had betrayed her, taking away the aspirations she once cherished deeply. Chamora and Oji, her children, felt the weight of her frustration. Their home, in stark contrast to the vibrant huts of the other wives, exuded an eerie stillness, broken only by the sharp echoes of Naiadi's furious voice. She would reprimand and raise her voice at them for the slightest error, labeling them with unkind names and imposing severe punishments for actions they couldn't even comprehend. The affection and comfort they yearned for eluded them completely. Instead, they endured harsh treatment and cruel words that etched scars deeper than any physical injury. Chamora and Oji toiled diligently on the farm. They assisted with household tasks such as preparing meals, gathering water and firewood, consistently striving to lighten their mother's load, yet nothing they accomplished ever appeared to satisfy her. From afar, they observed the other wives and their children sharing laughter, their homes brimming with warmth and togetherness. In stark contrast, Naiade's hut emanated an atmosphere of anger and sorrow, leaving the children ensnared in a realm of profound loneliness. Each evening, beneath the sprawling mango tree in the yard, the other children would come together, exchanging tales and laughter. Oji and Chamora sat close by, yearning to be part of the gathering, yet they held back, hesitant to intrude. Naiade had strictly prohibited them from engaging with their step-siblings or stepmothers. She warned them not to exchange a single word of greeting, holding out her ears as if challenging them to defy her. Their fears held them at bay, yet the desire within them remained ever present. Chamora, the elder of the two, found it difficult to grasp the depths of their mother's anger and resentment. Even with Naiade's cautions, Chamora would quietly offer a greeting to her step-siblings whenever her mother was out of sight. Her kindness set her apart from her siblings, and she harbored a quiet dream of a life where she and her sister could play freely alongside the others. Their sole refuge was the school. The free village school provided them an opportunity to escape the shadows of their home and discover a realm beyond their mother's resentment. In school, they could share laughter, absorb knowledge, and for a brief time, escape the hardships of their reality. As the school day drew to a close, they were inevitably drawn back into the stifling environment of their home, where Naiade's simmering anger lay in wait. As time flowed swiftly, Naiade and Chamora blossomed into stunning young women. Their allure was undeniable. Their dark, luminous skin, gleaming like polished ebony, and their fluid movements enchanted all who beheld them. As the sisters strolled past, villagers frequently halted, casting furtive glances, sometimes even lingering for a third look. Praise for their beauty turned into a regular event, and while the girls would flush and reply with bashful smiles, their mother Naiade radiated with pride. Before long, suitors started to appear at their doorstep, eager to seek the hands of the beautiful sisters in marriage. Young men from the village and beyond arrived in large numbers, bringing gifts and palm wine, eager to gain the favor of Naiade and her daughters. The tension between Chamora and Oji was both overwhelming and exhilarating. They envisioned creating their own families, escaping the confines of their mother's stifling home, and ultimately discovering joy. However, Naiade had her own intentions. Watching her daughters flourish into such beauties ignited a thought in her mind. For her, this represented a precious opportunity, a moment to break free from the struggles and resentments that had defined her existence. If Chamora and Oji were to marry affluent men, Naiade was certain her own life would improve significantly. She envisioned the presence and the wealth her daughters would bestow upon her after they wed into affluent families. Finally, she could embrace the opulent existence she had long desired, filled with ease, exquisite garments, and attendants to cater to her every need. With unwavering resolve, Naiade seized the reins of her destiny. She assumed the role of the ultimate gatekeeper, permitting no suitor to approach her daughters unless they fulfilled her lofty expectations. Like a lion protecting her domain, Naiade perched on a stool in the compound, her keen gaze scanning every man who approached. She questioned them with unyielding intensity, her voice slicing through the atmosphere with sharp precision. What is your profession? What is your income? How many cars do you actually have? How many houses have you constructed? She would insist, her expression stern and resolute. Naiade would not simply disregard a suitor who fell short of her expectations. She would drive him from the compound, wielding a stick and hurling insults so cutting that the unfortunate man would depart, doubting his own value. "Leave this place, you worthless fool," she would shout. "Do you believe my daughters are destined for a life with someone like you, who is mired in poverty?" Chima and Oji, on the other hand, found themselves without a voice in the situation. It was their future on the line, yet Naiade approached it as if it were her own. The young women sat in silence, their hearts laid bare, tears cascading down their cheeks, yearning for the liberty to select their own partners. They yearned to break free from their mother's suffocating hold, to create their own paths far from the resentment that permeated their household, yet Naiade remained resolute against the idea. She held the reins, and her daughters had no option but to comply. As tales of Naiade's severity circulated, the number of suitors dwindled. Once, young men looked up to Chima and Oji from a distance, but now they steered clear of their home, fearing the fury of Naiade. Before long, the sisters found themselves without any offers. The once bustling compound fell silent, and Chima and Oji started to sense the heaviness of their mother's choices. The girls were filled with deep concern. Everywhere they looked, friends were tying the knot, welcoming new lives, and progressing on their journeys. In the meantime, they continued to be single, ensnared in the lingering presence of their mother's influence. The villagers started to murmur and gesture whenever the sisters walked by, ridiculing them for remaining single. "Observe them," they would remark, "so lovely, yet no man dares approach because of that wicked mother of theirs." One night, Chima reached his breaking point. She resolved to face her mother, yearning for Nayade to finally grasp their suffering. "Mother," she started gently, as they lingered beneath the glow of the moon. "We kindly request the freedom to select our own husbands. We are ready for a change and can no longer endure this way of life." But before she could elaborate, Nayade's expression shifted to one of deep anger. "Chima, I have always known you are a foolish child," she exclaimed, her tone cutting and frigid. "Oh, so you intend to welcome a man in dire financial straits into this home, do you? You expect me to endure pain while you exist in such a destitute manner? The deities shall not permit it. No man of humble means shall wed my daughters, not ever. Challenge me, and I will sever his legs before he even sets foot in this compound." Chima sat in silence, her heart heavy with despair. She understood that engaging in logic with her mother was futile. The dialogue concluded at that point, leaving Chima feeling more despondent than before. However, Oge, the younger sister, started to perceive things in a new light. Gradually, she began to embrace her mother's vision of securing a life of affluence through marriage. The notion of embracing a life of opulence, reminiscent of Nayade's frequent musings, captivated her imagination. Oge adopted her mother's discerning nature, rejecting potential suitors with a haughty demeanor that instilled fear in even the most courageous men, making them hesitant to approach her. She developed a deeper bond with Nayade, and they would often sit together, sharing their thoughts about what lay ahead. Nayade would comfort her, saying, "Don't worry, my daughter, your Prince Charming will arrive soon. Your own Odugu awaits discovery." In those fleeting moments, envisioning prosperity and achievement, Nayade would smile, a seldom-seen expression in a household otherwise steeped in strain. As Oge welcomed her mother's vision, Chima remained ensnared in her own thoughts, yearning for a straightforward existence filled with happiness. On a chilly evening, as the sun sank low and brushed the sky with shades of orange and gold, Chima made her way home from the farm, a basket of yams balanced delicately on her head. Her mind wandered to distant places, yet her feet moved with purpose along the serene path that wound back to the village. Out of nowhere, she spotted a young man approaching her from the other side. He stood tall with broad shoulders and a striking face, his warm smile illuminating the dimming evening light. Chima had never encountered him in the village, yet she offered a courteous greeting, her gentle smile infusing her words with a hint of warmth. The young man halted, entranced by the allure that graced his sight. Her smooth skin shimmered with a subtle glow from her labor on the farm, and her large, inquisitive eyes appeared to capture the essence of the setting sun. For a brief moment, he found himself at a loss for words, but he swiftly regained his composure. "Good evening," he said, his voice soft but resolute. "I'm Azyabike." Chima acknowledged with a courteous nod. "Good evening, Azyabike." "I'm Chima," she said, her voice unwavering and composed. Azyabike, returning from the forest after setting traps for small game, found himself captivated by her presence. He observed the burdensome basket resting on her head and promptly extended his assistance. "Allow me to take that for you," he offered, moving in a bit nearer. Chima paused, a shy smile gracing his lips. "I appreciate your offer, but I can handle it myself." Yet Azyabike persisted, softly lifting the basket from her grasp and balancing it effortlessly on his sturdy arms. "I assure you, it's absolutely no bother," he replied, his smile radiating comfort. As they strolled side by side toward the village, their conversation began to flow. Azyabike revealed fragments of his life story, while Chima absorbed every detail with increasing intrigue. He shared with her that he had spent his childhood in a different village, raised by his aunt, who had always wished for him to stay by her side. As he transitioned into young adulthood, he ventured to the city to serve as an apprentice, honing his skills under the stern and avaricious guidance of his master. After years of dedication, his mentor had denied him a fair settlement, leaving Azyabike with nothing but disillusionment and vexation. It was a bleak period, Azyabike confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. I believed my life was finally aligning, yet everything crumbled. Thus, I made my way back to the village to begin anew. Chima's heart ached as she absorbed his tale. I'm truly sorry, she murmured gently, her tone brimming with compassion. I can hardly fathom the difficulty you must have faced. It's truly disheartening how certain individuals can exhibit such cruelty. Azyabike offered a faint, optimistic smile. It's all good, he remarked. I'm crafting new plans at the moment, and I'm hoping they come to fruition. Let's shift the focus from me, I'm eager to learn more about you. Chima's laughter floated gently through the air, a soft and sweet melody that filled Azyabike's heart with warmth. She spoke with a hint of humility, stating, There's really nothing much to say about me. I am Chima, the child of the late Nduka. My mother was his third spouse. Azyabike's demeanor shifted in an instant, and he erupted into laughter, leaving Chima utterly surprised. She halted her steps and pivoted, her brows knitted together in perplexity. What's so amusing? She inquired, tilting her head slightly. Azyabike swiftly gestured with his hand, attempting to suppress his amusement. Apologies, he remarked, a glimmer of mischief dancing in his eyes. My mother used to share tales of your mother scaring off your suitors with sticks. It was hilarious back then, but I never thought I would actually cross paths with you someday. He took a moment, a smile spreading across his face. Now I understand her fierce protectiveness. Your beauty is truly remarkable. Chima's smile disappeared, and her expression became grave. Her heart sank as she understood the extent of her mother's antics. The idea of becoming a target for ridicule left her feeling vulnerable and insignificant. I didn't mean to upset you, Azyabike said quickly, his gaze catching the sorrow reflected in her eyes. I sincerely apologize, it was never my intention to cause you pain. Indeed, he remarked with a mischievous smile, if I were in your mother's shoes, I would likely employ more than just a stick to fend off the suitors. Your value deserves safeguarding. His effort to uplift the atmosphere succeeded, and Chima found himself smiling. You're only trying to comfort me, she said, shaking her head. Honestly, I can't fault anyone for believing my mother is a bit eccentric. At times, I find myself pondering the very same notion. The villagers are not to blame. They erupted in laughter, the sound resonating through the serene paths as they carried on with their stroll. After a lengthy period, Chima experienced a flicker of joy. As they neared the village, their dialogue unfolded effortlessly, reminiscent of long-lost friends reuniting. Azyabike found himself reflecting that encountering Chima was the most fortunate event since his return home. Thus, the bond between Azyabike and Chima evolved into something truly remarkable. Azyabike, in the face of adversity, persevered alongside his father on the farm with unwavering dedication. He was resolute in his quest to amass sufficient funds to head back to the city and launch his own enterprise. Each evening, following a tiring day of work, he would stroll to the grand Udara tree at the village's edge. There, Chima would be waiting for him, her bright smile illuminating his weary spirit. In the cool embrace of the tree's shade, they gathered to converse, weaving tales and aspirations that soared well beyond the confines of their village. Azyabike possessed a remarkable talent for crafting narratives, bringing forth stories that had Chima laughing so hard that tears flowed freely down her cheeks. His kindness, patience, and respect captivated Chima, pulling her in with an inexplicable allure. They swiftly grew close, discovering solace and happiness in one another's presence. Their friendship soon blossomed into something deeper. For Chima, Azyabike embodied all her aspirations of the perfect partner. He possessed an undeniable charm and stature, exuding a subtle power that enveloped her in comfort, yet it was the depth of his heart that truly ensnared her. Azyabike consistently prioritized her happiness, and the way he gazed at her made her feel like the most significant person in existence. The villagers quickly fell into a rhythm of gossip regarding the duo, murmuring about the bond they seemed to share, yet neither Azyabike nor Chima took notice. They had discovered something extraordinary, and that was everything that counted. On a warm evening, as the stars started to twinkle in the darkening sky, Azyabike and Chima found themselves beneath the Udara tree, savoring the tranquility of the night, yet an unusual sensation lingered in the air. Azyabike appeared reserved and out of the ordinary, and Chima observed how he frequently cast glances in her direction, as though he were seeking the perfect words to express himself. At last, he inhaled deeply and faced her, their eyes meeting in a powerful connection. "Chima," he started, his voice gentle yet firm. "I have struggled against this feeling for quite some time, but I can no longer hold it back. From the moment our eyes met, I knew I was captivated by you. From that moment, I sensed your uniqueness," yet he paused, his gaze shadowed by concern. "I understand that I may not possess the financial means your mother desires for you. I haven't found the courage to express my feelings to you. I never intended to cause you pain, but even if marriage isn't in our future, it's important for you to understand this. I cherish you, Chima. My affection for you knows no bounds." Chima felt a surge of deep emotion. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears as she gazed at him, her lips quivering slightly. Her response came effortlessly. She was already aware of her emotions. In silence, she leaned in closer and enveloped him in her embrace, holding him firmly. Through her tears, spotted Ogi strolling with a basket of vegetables. She was coming back from the market. Her beauty was so striking that it halted him in his steps. He was utterly captivated by her presence. Her radiant skin shimmered in the sunlight, and her elegant stride was captivatingly undeniable. Tob felt an immediate urge to stop her and say something. "Hello, princess," he called out warmly, stepping out of his car with a confident smile. "Such beauty as yours deserves to be sheltered from the harshness of the sun. I cannot allow you to damage that delicate skin of yours. May I offer you a ride?" Chima turned to face him, her eyes sparkling with intrigue. She offered him a radiant smile, one so enchanting that it almost left him breathless. Tob experienced a sudden flutter in his chest. He was certain that he had just discovered the woman he wished to marry. Ogi nodded silently and slipped into his gleaming car, her thoughts swirling with exhilaration. While they were on the road, Tob posed questions to her. He was calm yet brimming with sincere curiosity. "May I ask what your name is? Are you a local resident? What activities take place in the village?" he inquired, filled with curiosity to discover more about her. Ogi responded to him with courtesy. Her voice was gentle and melodic, yet her keen eyes were diligently observing him. She observed his stylish attire, the luxurious watch on his wrist, and the pair of sleek phones resting on the dashboard. This man radiated affluence, and her heart lifted with joy. "This is precisely the type of man Mama always envisioned for us," she thought, stifling the impulse to shout her excitement too fervently. Tob soon arrived at their compound and parked the car. As Ogi got ready to leave, he reached into his pocket and retrieved a stack of fresh Naira notes. With a smile, he handed her the money. "I missed the opportunity to get you a gift because I never anticipated meeting someone as remarkable as you today. Utilize this to obtain anything you desire. I'll swing by tomorrow to visit you once more." Ogi gazed at the money, his mind racing with disbelief. She had never grasped such an immense amount before. "Thank you very much," she said, her voice quivering with appreciation. Tob flashed another smile, waved goodbye, and drove away, kicking up a swirl of dust in his wake. As soon as his car vanished from sight, Ogi rushed into the compound, her excitement overflowing. "Mama, Mama, Mama," she called out, her voice resonating through the yard as she brandished the bundle of money high above her head. Nayati, drawn by her daughter's joyful shouts, hurried out of the hut. "What is it, my daughter?" she inquired, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. Upon catching sight of the cash in Ogie's grasp, her jaw fell open in disbelief. What transpired? Where did you get all this money? She asked, her voice quivering with anticipation. She won't believe it, Mama, Ogie exclaimed, her face radiant with happiness. She swiftly shared her experience with Tobe, detailing how he had handed her the money and assured her he would return the following day. Naiadi brought her hands together in a joyful clap, her laughter bubbling up with the innocence of youth. Come, my daughter, come and share all that you know about him, she urged, drawing Ogie into the hut. As Ogie painted a picture of Tobe's wealth, Naiadi's expression radiated with pride. At last, my daughter has reeled in a big fish, she announced, her enthusiasm overflowing. It is essential for you to conduct yourself properly, Ogie, if you wish for him to take you as his bride. She warned him with a serious tone, urging him not to do anything that might frighten him off. Ogie nodded with enthusiasm, resolute in her decision to heed her mother's counsel. The following day, Tobe came back as he had vowed, this time with an array of gifts, including boxes filled with clothes, shoes, and jewelry. Naiadi and Ogie were absolutely thrilled. This one is my in-law, Naiadi exclaimed, disregarding any inquiry about Tobe's profession. His riches were undeniable, and that was all that she cared about. Tobe kept visiting Ogie daily, whisking her away in his extravagant car and lavishing her with presents. He adored her like royalty, and Ogie reveled in the affection, her heart yearning to be his bride. However, not all were pleased. Chuma observed the scene from afar, a weight of discomfort settling in her chest. There was an unsettling quality about Tobe that troubled her. He possessed an undeniable charm, and his affluence was captivating, yet the whispers that trailed him left her feeling cautious. She had caught the murmurs circulating through the village, suggesting that Tobe had departed just 2 months prior, without so much as a bicycle to his name. However, he was back, cruising in a luxury vehicle, toting a briefcase brimming with cash, and scattering bills in his wake. He was also envisioning the construction of an impressive mansion in the village. To Chuma, everything appeared almost unreal. One evening, Chuma chose to have a conversation with her sister Ogie. Ogie, she said softly, I believe it would be a good idea to inquire with Tobe about his profession. His unexpected fortune is puzzling to me. Kindly exercise caution. Don't allow your mother to steer you off course. However, Ogie did not respond positively. She shot a fierce look at Chuma and retorted sharply. What makes you so pessimistic? Your envy stems from my success in finding someone affluent while you have not. The words pierced through him, yet Chuma sought to find a way to understand her perspective. Regrettably, Ogie hurried to their mother and revealed all that Chuma had expressed. Naiadi was seething with anger. Did I attempt to sabotage your sister's joy? Naiadi shouted, her tone cutting through the air with fury. Who are you to challenge her? Do you wish for us to keep enduring this pain? Oh dear girl, can you truly not feel a twinge of embarrassment that your younger sister has found a partner before you? Do not even think about inviting me to confront you. Chuma became quiet, her heart weighed down by sorrow. She observed with a sense of powerlessness as Ogie and Naiadi reveled in Tobe's attention, oblivious to the glaring warning signs that were evident to her. For Chuma, the situation loomed like a volcano on the brink of eruption, yet she found herself powerless to intervene. After several weeks, the moment everyone had been anticipating finally came. Ogie and Tobe exchanged vows in a magnificent and intricate ceremony that captured the attention of the entire village. Naiadi was absolutely elated. For her, this wedding represented a triumph, a means of escaping poverty. Her aspirations for opulence and grandeur felt within reach, and she basked in the village's admiration with pride. The compound buzzed with festivity. The air was infused with a tantalizing scent of a variety of dishes. The rhythmic pulse of drums and the sweet melodies of flutes enveloped the atmosphere, while dancers gracefully moved in harmony, their laughter resonating among the throngs of onlookers. Ogie and Tobe captivated everyone around them, their joyous dancing igniting wild smiles as the villagers erupted in cheers. Naiadi observed the couple, her eyes gleaming with pride. Her heart swelled with the vision of Ogi embracing the opulent life she had always envisioned. The villagers murmured in hushed tones, captivated by Tobe's affluence and charm, while Nayade reveled in their admiration. Following the wedding, Ogi departed for the city alongside her new husband. She made occasional visits to Nayade, each time arriving with gifts and money in hand. Nayade's life became increasingly comfortable, and she couldn't help but share her daughter's good fortune with the villagers, reveling in her pride. In the meantime, the bond between Chamora and Azubaik deepened and blossomed. Their connection had deepened, and with Ogi now wed, Azubaik felt it was the right moment to move forward. He understood that he must confront Nayade, Chamra's mother, and clearly articulate his desire to marry her daughter. He felt a flutter of anxiety, yet his resolve was unwavering, fully aware of the significance Chamora held in his life. Chamora, nonetheless, couldn't dispel the anxiety that lingered in her heart. She understood her mother intimately. Nayade prioritized wealth and status above everything else. Chamora recognized that although Azubaik was diligent and compassionate, he fell short of her mother's financial standards. That night, Chamora lay in bed, restless and wide awake. She whispered a quiet plea, hoping the deities would touch her mother's heart with compassion. The following afternoon, Azubaik showed up looking sharp, with a keg of fresh palm wine in one hand and a meticulously wrapped piece of bush meat in the other. His heart raced as he entered the compound where Nayade sat outside her hut. He acknowledged her presence with a courteous nod, bowing slightly in a gesture of respect. Nayade hardly acknowledged his presence. Her piercing gaze assessed him thoroughly, her demeanor icy and uninterested. Azubaik, who had always exuded confidence, suddenly found himself engulfed by a tide of nervousness. The atmosphere felt dense, and he understood just how formidable Nayade could be. "Good afternoon, Mama," he repeated, managing a smile. "This is for you." Nayade arched an eyebrow, her lips twisting into a cunning smile. She overlooked the offerings of his salutation. Instead, she leaned in, her eyes narrowing with intent. "How can I assist you today?" she inquired, her voice laced with contempt. Nayade emerged at that moment with a joyful cheer, greeting him with a radiant smile that eased his tension slightly. She departed from the two of them, wishing for a favorable outcome. Azubaik took a deep breath but succeeded in maintaining a calm tone. "Mother, I wish to express my feelings regarding your daughter," he began, attempting to project confidence. "I love Chamora very much. I desire to unite with her and create a future together." Nayade's eyes grew a fraction wider. A sly smile crept onto her lips. "Did I just hear you express your affection for my daughter?" she inquired, her tone dripping with irony. She rose and stretched her neck, feigning a search for something elusive. "Where have you parked your vehicle? It seems to be nowhere in sight." Azubaik stood still, his assurance dissipating. I still don't have a car, Mama," he stuttered. Nayade erupted into a boisterous, derisive laugh. "Without a car? Not even a single bicycle? Are you aware of the typical number of cars that men your age are expected to own by this point? 5. Or perhaps even 10. Everything is quite costly, naturally. Yet here you are, striding into my domain with those two spindly legs, asserting your desire to marry my daughter. Are you crazy? Have I mentioned that I host some rather eccentric individuals here?" Azubaik's cheeks flushed with a deep crimson hue, a clear sign of his embarrassment. He attempted to clarify his position. "Mother, I have intentions. I'm putting in a lot of effort and Flora. Vegetation." Nayade interrupted him with a booming voice. "Plants can be dangerous there. Indeed, may the deities unleash their fury upon that mouth of yours with a bolt of thunder. Will plants purchase clothing for me? Will plants purchase jewelry for me? Will it look after Choma?" She gestured towards the bush meat he had presented. "What is this?" "Bush. Bush meat, Mama," Azubaik responded, his voice trembling. Nayade let out a sharp hiss. The marvels are endless. Check this out. You seem unaware of your position. Suitors arrive with lavish gifts such as gold, silver, and fine garments, yet you present me with meat? Did I mention that I'm a dog? I hold no resentment towards you. I hold my worthless daughter responsible for letting someone like you believe you stand a chance. Mother, I implore you. Azyabike made another attempt, but Nayade interrupted him with a loud exclamation. I'm finished. Leave my property immediately. Remove your unneeded palm wine and meat before I reach 3. Vanish, or I will take matters into my own hands. 1. 2. Azyabike didn't pause for her to get to 3. He snatched his belongings and dashed out of the compound, his heart weighed down by shame and disappointment as he sprinted away. Choma, observing the unfolding drama from the sidelines, dashed after him, her cheeks wet with tears. She was consumed by a sense of helplessness and anger towards her mother, yet she found herself at a loss for how to proceed. Nayade reclined with a contented expression, murmuring, "These naive boys believe they can outsmart me. Not in this lifetime. I won't let Choma bring me down like this." Azyabike. Azyabike. Choma cried, her voice trembling as she sprinted after him. Her feet struck the dusty village path with urgency, her heart quickening with each stride. She finally reached him, motionless by the roadside, his shoulders drooping. His face displayed a blend of embarrassment and anger, yet when he turned to see her tear-streaked visage, his expression transformed into one of tenderness. "Apologies, Choma," Azyabike murmured, his tone laden with sorrow. "This. I anticipated. I never anticipated it would turn out this poorly." Choma's chest constricted, her deepest dread unfolding right in front of her. "What are you saying, Azyabike?" she asked, her voice quivering as new tears streamed down her cheeks. "Are you abandoning our connection? Are you going away from me?" Azyabike shook his head slowly, his eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "Choma, you know how much you mean to me. My affection for you has always been deep, yet I cannot be held responsible for the twists and turns that life has taken away from my intentions. I am not idle. If only my mentor in the city had arranged my future more suitably after my training, circumstances might have unfolded differently. I devoted myself to him completely, and I never took a single cobble from him. But now," he paused, his voice trembling, "now I'm here, fighting to gather funds to launch something of my own. I'm putting in a lot of effort, Choma, and I know that these things require patience. They aren't enchanted, and your mother," he exhaled heavily. "She could never bring herself to accept someone like me. The way she regarded me today was something else, as though I were invisible, not even worthy of her acknowledgement." Choma moved in, her voice filled with urgency. "Let's escape, Azyabike," she urged, gripping his arm tightly. "Let us venture far from this spot, to a realm where we can begin anew. We can create our journey together at a rhythm that feels right for us. Feel free to return at a more opportune time to settle the bride price. In that case, Choma will inevitably have to embrace your presence." For a brief moment, Azyabike found himself enveloped in silence. He gazed at her, his face a canvas of anguish, caught in the struggle between affection and obligation. At last, he gave a slight shake of his head. "Choma, you are worthy of so much more than that. I cannot bring that upon you or your loved ones. I may lack wealth, but I possess a strong sense of integrity. Escaping would be misguided. If I proceed without your mother's approval, it will leave me feeling as though I have let you down, as if I have let myself down too." Then, as if a thread of hope wove through him, he said, "Please, if you care for me, just grant me time. Just a handful of years, and that's all I require. I will put in the effort, with unwavering determination, and I will return for you. At that point, I will possess the ability to earn your mother's favor." Choma's voice trembled. "Where will you venture, Azyabike? What steps will you take to begin anew?" He inhaled deeply, seeking to regain his composure. "I will return to the city," he declared with conviction. "I have a small amount of savings. It's not a lot, but it holds some value. I plan to begin modestly, and I will put in the effort to succeed. Trust me, Choma, just hold on for me, okay? Choma's tears streamed down as she enveloped him in a tight embrace. She leaned her head against his chest, attuned to the rhythmic pulse of his heart. I shall wait for you, Azyabike, she murmured amidst her tears. I am prepared to wait for however long it may require. Azyabike embraced her tightly, his heart shattering at the mere idea of parting ways. Thank you, he murmured gently. I appreciate your faith in me. The two lovers stood there, entwined in each other's arms, their feelings palpable and their hearts heavy with longing. The idea of separation weighed heavily on their hearts, yet they understood it was the sole path ahead. Azyabike had to depart. The city represented his sole opportunity to forge a future, not merely for himself, but for Choma too. As the sun sank beneath the horizon, casting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Choma finally released him. She observed him as he pivoted and started to walk away, his silhouette diminishing with each stride. Tears clouded her sight, yet she remained steadfast, anchored in place, quietly hoping for his triumph. Azyabike also sensed the gravity of the occasion. With each step he took, it was as if a blade was piercing deeper into his heart. With fists tightly clenched, he resolved to ensure that Choma would not be let down. The city brimmed with promise, and he would pursue it with all his might, for her, for their love, for the life they envisioned together. Choma's existence turned into a relentless struggle after Azyabike departed for the city. With his absence, she sensed that the one individual who genuinely valued her had vanished. However, the most challenging aspect stemmed from her mother Nayade, who appeared to channel all her frustration and disillusionment onto her. Nayade seized every chance to taunt Choma about her single status, persistently ridiculing her and drawing comparisons to her younger sister Ugi. Shameless girl, Nayade would shout, her voice cutting through the air like a whip. Observe your sister, notice her radiance, how she nurtures both you and me. You wish to wed that worthless scoundrel Azyabike. You bring me shame. I regret the decision to bring you into this world. What have I done to warrant such disgrace from my daughter? Each time Ugi came from the city, it only intensified the situation. Ugi would pull up in the extravagant car, emerging in the most exquisite attire, her face radiating with self-assurance. Nayade would instruct Choma to prepare meals and attend to her younger sister, frequently making cutting comments as she went about it. What is the reason for me to serve her? Choma had once mustered the courage to inquire, but Nayade had erupted in fury. Because she has value unlike you. She married someone wealthy and looks after me, in contrast to you, who hasn't succeeded. Ugi never stood up for Choma. Rather, she appeared to take pleasure in her sister's disgrace. Mama is right, Ugi would declare with a self-satisfied grin, sipping her juice with a sense of triumph. Choma, you won't truly grasp Mama's words until you find yourself wed to a wealthy man. Behold my transformation, elegant lady. My husband nurtures me, indulges me, and treats me like royalty each day. That car over there is the tiniest of my vehicles. Oh, I feel incredibly fortunate. Her words dripped with sarcasm, designed to belittle Choma. Choma sat beneath the tree, suppressing her pride and stifling tears, as she observed her mother and sister indulging in the chicken and juice that Ugi had brought from the city. This is absolutely delightful. Nayade would exclaim, licking her fingers. It seems everyone is having a great time in this city. Mama, indulge as much as you desire, Ugi would respond, a playful smirk dancing on her lips as she glanced at her sister. There's much more to come. My husband, Infinite. They never extended an invitation to Choma, yet she persevered. She remained silent, concealing her suffering behind an impassive facade. Under the cover of night, she would beseech the deities with great intensity, seeking their favor for Azyabike. Uncertain of his circumstances in the city, she held tightly to her hope, convinced that he was striving diligently and that eventually, he would come back to her. 2 years went by, and still, there was silence from Azyabike, no letter, no message, nothing at all. Even his own family had not received any word from him. The silence enveloped her, and for Choma, the weight of it intensified with every day that went by. Every day, Nayade would unleash her fury, calling her an old fool. You remain present. Seek out a partner for life. You will not bring shame upon me in this village. Observe your friends, they have all tied the knot. Your sister has welcomed a child into the world. Yet you are a monstrosity. Choma experienced a suffocating sense of despair. The burden of her mother's words bore heavily upon her, stifling her essence. She pleaded with Oge to allow her to visit the city, yearning for an escape from the relentless suffering, but Oge had brushed her off with indifference. It's important to seek a partner and commit to that relationship. That's what your friends are up to, she stated flatly, declining to assist. With no alternative available, Choma found herself confined at home, ensnared in the perpetual loop of her mother's fury and discontent. With Oge's departure, she assumed responsibility for all the household chores. Cooking, fetching water, going to the farm, yet, despite her relentless efforts, it was never sufficient for Nayade. You are useless, she would shout, her voice reverberating through the compound. Your efforts will never lead to meaningful outcomes. I ought to have cast you into the river at the moment of your birth. Choma's heart shattered a bit more with each passing day. She felt confined, her essence weighed down by the heaviness of her mother's words and the ambiguity of what lay ahead. Azubike's absence created an emptiness in her existence, and the unyielding mistreatment from her mother led her to doubt whether she could ever rediscover joy. Yet, in the midst of her suffering, Choma held tightly to the one thing that fueled her perseverance. Anticipation. Wishing for Azubike's return. She held on to the hope that her prayers would be answered. She longed for a day when her life would transform. On a bright afternoon, Nayade came back from the market, carrying a large basket overflowing with yams, vegetables, dried fish, and spices. Her face radiated happiness, and her movements were remarkably buoyant. Upon entering the compound, she burst into song and dance, radiating joy and exuberance. Choma, busy peeling cassava in the corner, glanced up in astonishment. Choma, my daughter, Nayade exclaimed with a beaming smile. The deities have at last responded to our supplications. A prosperous gentleman from the city will arrive tomorrow to seek your hand in marriage. Choma stood still, the cassava knife falling from her grasp. She rose gradually, her heart racing. Excuse me? She inquired, her voice trembling with incredulity. No, Mama. I have no intention of marrying anyone other than Azubike. I have mentioned previously that I am not interested. The smile on Nayade's face disappeared in an instant. Her gaze sharpened, and her demeanor became frosty. Look at this old cago, she snapped angrily. We are here to assist you, yet you continue to speak in circles. Do you believe you're becoming any younger? You are nearing your 30s. Before long, your face will bear the marks of time, and you may find yourself in a quiet corner, reminiscent of an elder, anticipating the arrival of a man who is likely out in the city, reveling in the company of youthful companions. Stop, Mama! Choma yelled. Her voice resonated with a deep sense of frustration and sorrow. I am thoroughly fed up with this absurdity. What have I done to deserve this? What is it that drives you to create such hardship in my life? Nayade's jaw fell open in disbelief. She gazed at Choma in disbelief, struggling to comprehend the words being spoken. Is that how you're speaking to me? She inquired, her tone hushed and menacing. Indeed, Mama, Choma retorted, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. You chased away all my admirers, and now you have the audacity to blame me for being alone? Azubike arrived, and you insulted him, humiliated him, and crushed his spirit, showing no regard for my feelings. My affection for Azubike runs deep, and I would gladly endure the passage of time, even to the point of graying, just to be by his side. If he doesn't return, that's just how it is, but I will not be your instrument, Mother. Nayade's expression contorted in rage. Gray hairs in my own home? You can't be serious. Listen closely, Choma, if that person's name ever escapes your lips again, it will hit you hard right where you are. She directed a quivering finger toward her daughter. Your husband arrives tomorrow, and you will unite in marriage. Prepare yourself, or you will come to wish you had never seen the light of day. Choma's tears flowed freely at last. As she fled the compound, tears cascaded down her cheeks, her mother's furious words ringing in her ears. She sprinted and sprinted until she arrived at the well-known place beneath the Udara tree, the spot where she and Azubike had shared countless joyful evenings together. There, she collapsed to the earth, hiding her face in her hands. Her heart was burdened with sorrow. More than 4 years had passed since Azubike departed for the city, yet there remained no news of him. Had he truly overlooked her presence? Was she naive for clinging to a vow he may have forgotten? Was he finding joy in the city alongside other little girls, just as her mother had mentioned? No, Choma declared, shaking her head vigorously, as if to dispel the thoughts swirling in her mind. That's not my Azubike. He expressed his love for me. He vowed he would return. Her friends had ridiculed her repeatedly, labeling her as foolish and naive, as they anticipated the return of a man who may never come back. Yet Choma had vowed to herself and to Azubike, and she clung to the hope that he would honor his commitment. Under the tree, Choma wept until the sun vanished and the sky became adorned with stars. Her heart throbbed with uncertainty and desire, yet she held tightly to the delicate strand of hope that had sustained her throughout the years. At last, as the night turned bitterly cold, she rose and brushed away her tears. With each step, she trudged home, her shoulders drooping under the burden of her grief. Inside, Nayade awaited, her expression frozen in a mask of fury. Yet Choma remained indifferent. She quietly entered her room, gently shut the door behind her, and reclined on her mat, gazing up at the ceiling. The following morning, Nayade rose with the dawn, humming a lively melody while she occupied herself in the kitchen. Her face radiated with enthusiasm, and her vibrant energy was infectious. Choma observed from the shadows, bewildered and taken aback. Her mother's happiness was a rare sight to behold. "Nne, come and assist me," Nayade called, using a term of endearment for Choma that she hadn't heard in years. "Your admirers will be arriving shortly." Choma's eyebrows arched in astonishment. Her mother referred to her as Nne. This unexpected sweetness seemed unfamiliar. Hesitant to dampen her mother's spirits, she joined her in the kitchen with a sense of reluctance. The two strolled quietly, an unspoken tension lingering in the atmosphere, even as Nayade maintained a cheerful demeanor. Choma's mind was burdened with a multitude of thoughts. Before long, the quiet was interrupted by the distant rumble of cars drawing near. 3 elegant vehicles glided into the compound, their polished surfaces shimmering in the morning light. Nayade leaped from the kitchen, arms outstretched, twirling and exclaiming with exuberance. "Oh my goodness, Gomo!" she exclaimed, her voice brimming with enthusiasm. "My in-laws have arrived." One by one, men emerged from the vehicles. They were youthful, attractive individuals adorned in elegant attire, alongside mature, distinguished figures who exuded a sense of authority. They all appeared affluent, their aura radiating authority and achievement. Nayade's eyes glimmered as she greeted them, inviting them to sit with the assurance of a devoted matriarch. A few elders from Choma's family were present, seated in a corner, quietly observing the unfolding scene. Nayade, however, could barely hold back her excitement, her joy almost consuming her. "Nne," Nayade called out once more as she encountered Choma in the kitchen. "Put on your best outfit. A new dress awaits you on my bed. They will be requesting to meet with you shortly." Choma entered her room quietly, her heart weighed down. The previous night, she had grappled with her thoughts, her emotions pulling her in various directions. More than 4 years had passed since Azubike departed for the city, and she had not received a single word from him, not even once. Did he still recall her? Was he still putting in the effort to come back to her, or had he moved forward, leaving behind the vows they once shared? She gazed at her reflection in the mirror while slipping into the dress chosen by her mother. It fits perfectly, accentuating her beauty, yet she experienced none of the joy she might have felt years ago. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she murmured, "Azubike, if you can hear me, rescue me now." A sudden knock on the door pulled her from her reverie. Swiftly drying her tears, she faced the door. "Nne, they're waiting for you," Nayade said softly, her voice imbued with an unexpected tenderness. Choma inhaled deeply, attempting to calm her racing thoughts. The sweetened tone from her mother only heightened her discomfort. With deliberate grace, she emerged and made her way toward the assembly beyond. Upon her arrival, the atmosphere was charged with audible expressions of awe. "Chai, or Malaysia," one of the men exclaimed, "look at her beauty, simply stunning." Choma managed a courteous smile and greeted them, her heart racing with a blend of frustration and hopelessness. An elder in the family rose to their feet and gestured towards a young man positioned at the heart of the gathering. The elder proclaimed with pride that Chief Ozabi's son has come to seek a hand in marriage. Choma's gaze moved to the man in question. He possessed striking looks, defined features, and an undeniable aura of self-assurance, yet as she gazed upon him, her heart felt unyielding and distant. "This is not the one I desire," she reflected, "I long for Azubike." To her astonishment, the young man erupted into laughter, his shoulders trembling with mirth. Choma's eyes widened in surprise. What was happening, she pondered. An older man gently placed his hand on the young man's shoulder, attempting to soothe his agitation. To validate Choma's apprehension, the man abruptly clapped his hands once more and began conversing with the empty space, his speech fragmented and nonsensical. The assembly descended into a hushed stillness, each person gazing at him with astonished eyes. Choma's heart sank as the truth became clear. This man was not in a good place, he was struggling with his mental health. Her throat constricted, and tears brimmed in her eyes. "Is this truly what my mother desires for me?" she pondered with a heavy heart, to wed someone like this merely due to his family's wealth. The burden of her mother's avarice and her own powerlessness bore down on her. Silently, she pivoted and dashed away, her feet propelling her as far from the compound as they could take her. "No need to fret about her," Nayade said swiftly, attempting to comfort the visitor. "You've noticed her, she'll be back. She's merely a child, unaware of what truly benefits her." But Choma wasn't returning, as she sprinted, her tears clouding her sight and her chest rising and falling with sobs. Her heart brimmed with fury, hopelessness, and an intense desire to break free from the life her mother imposed upon her. "Azubike, where are you?" she pondered, her heart yearning for the man who captured her soul. "If you truly care for me, I implore you to return." Choma slipped into her home under the cover of night, her movements deliberate and soft as she aimed to enter her hut without disturbing her mother's slumber. The compound lay shrouded in darkness, with only the soft, ethereal glow of moonlight casting a gentle illumination upon the pathway. Her heart raced with fatigue and trepidation as she crept toward the door. But just as she approached the threshold, Nayade's piercing voice sliced through the silence like a prolonged, sharp cry. "Where do you believe you are headed?" Choma stood still, her heart racing in her chest. "Mama," she whispered, her voice quivering. "Don't you mama me." Nayade snapped, her voice brimming with fury. She emerged from the darkness, her gaze ignited with rage. "Choma, you made me feel ashamed, you put me in a humiliating position in front of our in-laws. Are you aware of their identity? Are you aware of their immense wealth and the high regard in which they are held? And you simply dashed away like a wild spirit." Choma felt a constriction in her throat as she turned to confront her mother. Her eyes brimmed with tears, yet the frustration surged forth, unstoppable. "Mama, you want me to marry a madman just because he's wealthy?" she exclaimed, her voice trembling with emotion. "Why would you treat me this way? Is this the extent of your disdain for me? What about my joy? What is the best way to coexist with someone like that?" Nayade's lips twisted in revulsion as she folded her arms tightly across her chest. "That madman, as you refer to him, is Chief Ozabi's sole heir," she exclaimed. "Are you aware of the implications of that? Consider the riches, envision the fortune, the influence that will be within your grasp. Envision the lifestyle you could embrace, filled with opulence and ease. Who really cares about love, Choma? Affection won't cover expenses, financial stability brings joy. Choma shook her head, tears flowing down her cheeks uncontrollably. Mama, I can't do this, she said softly, her voice clear and resonant. I cannot marry him, I implore you, do not force me into this decision. Yet Nayade remained steadfast, advancing with determination, her finger raised in accusation towards her daughter. If you choose not to marry that man, you will cause us to miss this invaluable opportunity. I promise you, I will bring down a curse upon you. Nayade's voice resonated powerfully throughout the compound. I will cast a spell upon you, Choma. You drew from me, and should I cast a spell upon you, you shall endure endless torment. Can you hear me? Your wedding is just 4 days away, only 4 days. Choma's legs trembled under the heavy burden of her mother's words. She was in disbelief, grappling with the harsh reality that her own mother would resort to such cruelty in a threat. Silently, she turned and stumbled away, tears blurring her vision as she headed toward the old mango tree at the edge of the compound. There, beneath the well-known branches that had once offered her solace and shelter, Choma lowered herself to the earth, the coarse bark pressing into her back as she rested against the tree, her body shaking with tears. Her chest constricted, her heart burdened by a profound sense of hopelessness. Her mother's words reverberated in her thoughts, I will curse you, I will curse you. Choma concealed her face in her hands, longing to vanish, yearning for a time before her existence. Why, mother? She murmured into the shadows, why do you despise me so deeply? What have I done to warrant this? She reflected on her life, on the love she held for Azubike and the vow they had exchanged, that Azubike was no longer there, and now she found herself ensnared in a nightmare from which there was no escape. Her tears cascaded more fiercely as another surge of anguish enveloped her. For the first time in her life, Choma experienced a profound sense of despair. Her dreams, her hopes, her happiness, everything felt irreparably broken. She hugged her knees tightly, swaying gently as her sobs mingled with the whispering leaves overhead. She felt lost, uncertain of her next move, trapped in a situation with no clear way out. Nduka's compound was a visual delight, with vibrant fabrics cascading from every corner and fresh flowers adorning the pathways. The air was thick with the enticing aroma of jollof rice, spicy goat meat, pepper soup, and fried chicken, stirring a deep hunger within. Villagers congregated with enthusiasm, their voices ringing with joy and laughter, their expressions radiant with eager expectation. This was a wedding that everyone in the village eagerly anticipated. Inside her small hut, Choma sat with her swollen eyes, gazing out at the lively crowd. Her face reflected a history of countless tears, her heart weighed down by sorrow and remorse. At this moment, all she desired was liberation from her mother's unyielding hold and relentless anguish. Taking the plunge with her unpredictable fiancé, a man whose name eluded her, seemed like her sole avenue to freedom. It became evident to her that Azubike had moved on, leaving her behind, and it was time for her to embrace the next chapter of her life. Perhaps, she mused with a touch of bitterness, there might be a glimmer of happiness waiting for me in the city. She made a firm decision to never go back home, to never lay eyes on her mother again. The money Nayade craved, the very sum that had compelled her to urge Choma into the arms of a madman, would forever elude her grasp. Choma made a solemn promise to conceal it from her mother, marking her ultimate act of rebellion. She will come to regret ever compelling me to wed this man. As she gazed through the window, it appeared that everyone outside was filled with joy, leaving her feeling isolated. Her sister Oji had come back as well, accompanied by her husband and their 2 kids. They shared laughter and conversation, completely absorbed in their own little universe. Choma let out a heavy sigh, her heart constricting with grief. She dried her tears, aware that it was time to prepare herself. Shortly thereafter, a raucous uproar heralded the entrance of Osoba and his family. Their convoy of cars was even more magnificent than during their previous visit, and the villagers gazed in wonder as the vehicles came to a halt in the compound. Affluence radiated from their every gesture, luxurious attire, dazzling accessories, and assured expressions. The crowd's admiration was unmistakable. Choma, nonetheless, lingered in her heart, causing it to sink even deeper. The groom's mother stepped into the room where Choma was, the scent of her luxurious perfume enveloping the space. She possessed an air of elegance, complemented by a welcoming smile. She walked over to Choma, her expression gentle and filled with compassion. "Don't worry, my daughter," she said, patting Choma gently on the shoulder. "I understand that this may feel like a lot to handle, but I assure you that you will always have everything you need. We will ensure your needs are well attended to. Your offspring shall inherit our grand legacy." She halted, surveying Choma carefully. "You're truly beautiful," she said with a smile before stepping out. Choma merely nodded, unable to find the words to reply. Once the woman departed, tears cascaded down her cheeks without restraint. Her heart throbbed with the weight of unfulfilled possibilities. She longed to let out a cry, to call upon the skies for assistance. Yet she concealed her anguish and dried her eyes. It was time to confront what lay ahead. The ceremony commenced with lively music and enthusiastic cheers from the audience. Choma approached to extend her greetings to her husband and his family, as was customary. With quivering hands and a weighty heart, she emerged from the hut. Her expression darkened with grief. Her movements were deliberate and robotic as she swayed to the soft, gentle music. It was evident to all in attendance that the bride was not pleased. As she approached the heart of the compound, an unexpected uproar disrupted the ceremony. Hearts raced as 3 polished cars glided into the compound. Their engine roared like lions. The doors swung open, revealing armed bodyguards who emerged with an air of authority that instilled both respect and trepidation. The audience inhaled sharply, their reactions intensifying. A man emerged from the 3rd car, clad in a luxurious, impeccably tailored outfit that exuded sophistication and authority. His whole demeanor exuded affluence, adorned with golden accents, gleaming footwear, and an air of command. He stood tall, surveying the crowd until his gaze landed on Choma. Choma felt a surge of excitement in her chest. Her breath caught as the realization washed over her like a tide. "Azubike!" she exclaimed, her voice brimming with elation and astonishment. With a sudden burst of energy, she dashed toward him, her feet almost flying above the earth. With tears cascading down her cheeks, she plunged into his welcoming embrace, clinging to him fiercely. It was as if she were lost in a reverie, one she wished would never end. "I thought you had forgotten me," she sobbed, her tears soaking into his clothes. Azubike embraced her garments, his arms firm and unwavering around her. "How could I ever forget you?" he asked, his voice thick with feeling. "I promised you, Choma, and I'm here to offer you my love. I've put in so much effort, and now I'm here for you once again." The audience stood in awe, their jaws dropped in disbelief. Even the musicians had ceased their performance, their instruments hanging limply in their grasp. All gazes fixated on Nayati, her jaw dropped in utter astonishment. Nayati was in disbelief at the sight before her. This was the very man she had belittled, shamed, and forced out of her space years prior. Now, he stood before her, encircled by bodyguards and exuding opulence. Azubike had transformed into everything she had envisioned in a son-in-law and beyond. Her knees almost buckled as she whispered to herself, "The gods must be toying with me." The ceremony swiftly spiraled into disorder. With fury and shame etched on their faces, the Azuba family erupted from the compound. Chief Azuba, his voice booming, directed his attention to Nayati. "Never in my life have I experienced such humiliation," he shouted. "Return all the money, gifts, and everything else you've taken from us within 2 days. Should you falter, you will encounter my fury." With that, he got into his car, forcefully shutting the door behind him. The convoy of vehicles sprang to life and raced off, abandoning a crowd that stood in stunned silence. Nayati remained motionless in the center of the compound, her body quaking. Glistening droplets of perspiration gathered on her brow while her thoughts surged with intensity. She had exhausted it all, the funds, the presents, everything. She had utilized it to replenish the home, acquire new garments and accessories, and subsequently get ready for the wedding. At that moment, she found herself utterly devoid of everything. Yet Chuma remained indifferent to it all. It was all irrelevant to her at this point. Azyubike had returned, and he consumed her thoughts entirely. For the first time in years, her heart felt buoyant, and a broad smile danced across her lips as she held on to his arm. This time, she promised that nothing would stand in their way. That evening, beneath the Udara tree where their love story had begun, Chuma and Azyubike sat side by side, their hands gently intertwined. The moonlight enveloped them in a gentle radiance as Azyubike started to unfold his tale. Upon my return to the city, he began, his voice unwavering yet brimming with feeling. The situation turned out to be more dire than I had anticipated. For months, I grappled with the challenge of finding my footing. I explored every avenue, taking on various odd jobs, selling little items, doing whatever it took to get by. Yet, nothing seemed to succeed. He halted, his eyes locked onto the earth beneath him. There were days when I found myself with nothing to eat. Evenings spent under the open sky. It seemed utterly desolate. Chuma's hold on his hand grew firmer, her heart shattering as she absorbed every word. One day, I encountered a Chinese businessman. He sought a dependable partner to assist him in his business endeavors. I began assisting him, managing errands and supporting minor transactions. As time passed, he recognized my reliability and started to provide me with goods on credit for sale. That was the moment everything shifted for me. Azyubike's voice resonated with confidence, his eyes sparkling with pride. I toiled tirelessly, forging relationships and expanding my enterprise. It was a challenging journey, Chuma, yet I persevered without faltering. Your love was my driving force. I aspired to be the person you truly deserved. Today, I manage stores in Alaba International Market, Lagos. I constructed my own home in the city, and my enterprise is flourishing. The journey was arduous, yet I persevered and arrived at my destination. I'm here now, and I won't be going anywhere again. Tears of joy streamed down Chuma's cheeks as she embraced him, holding him close. She whispered, "I'm incredibly proud of you. You have transformed into the person I always believed you were capable of becoming." A few days later, Azyubike cleared all the debts of the old Azuba family, freeing her from their legacy. In spite of all her actions, he decided to extend compassion, if only for Chuma's benefit. Weeks later, he and Chuma exchanged vows in a grand ceremony that would become the talk of the village for years to come. The atmosphere was alive with a genuine celebration of affection, as melodies, movement, and happiness enveloped everyone present. The couple radiated joy as they twirled in each other's embrace. At last, liberated to embrace the existence they had long envisioned. Nayati, however, found herself engulfed in a sea of regret. As she observed the ceremony from the sidelines, a profound sense of shame enveloped her. She reflected on her treatment of Chuma, the insults and humiliation she had inflicted on Azyubike, and how her greed had come perilously close to undermining her daughter's happiness. She was astonished by the extent of her misjudgment. It has been a dreadful act. She took her own life in a tragic manner. Her head hung low, a veil of shame enveloping her. She felt uncertain whether Chuma or Azyubike would ever find it in their hearts to forgive her, yet she held on to the hope that one day they could. Following the wedding, Azyubike and Chuma made their way back to the city side by side. Their new abode was stunning. A reflection of Azyubike's relentless effort and unwavering resolve. They dedicated their days to crafting a shared existence. Their love is more powerful than ever before. One evening, as he sat by the pool, Azyubike gently took Chuma's hands in his and gazed deeply into her eyes. "I will love you until the day I cease to draw breath," he declared. His voice may have lacked skill, yet it was brimming with feeling. "In the midst of my solitary battles in the city, thoughts of you lingered in my mind. Whenever I considered surrendering, I recalled the vow I took for you. I promised myself I would return as someone worthy of your pride, and now, here we stand. My affection for you transcends the limits of expression." Chuma's eyes sparkled with unshed tears as she leaned in and pressed her lips softly against his. "I can't love you less," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "You mean the world to me, Azubike." In that moment, enveloped by the tranquility they had tirelessly sought, the couple realized their love had triumphed over every challenge. At last, they found solace in one another's embrace. Upon returning to the village following Chuma's marriage ceremony, Oji made the decision to stay and not go back to the city. She remained with her mother as her husband went back to his community. Initially, Yujide believed they were eager to share moments with her, but as weeks turned into months, she began to sense that something was amiss. Tobe, once known for arriving at the compound in his flashy car, now approached on foot, his head bowed in defeat. The house he had been constructing in the village remained unfinished, and whispers grew that he had parted with it. Yujide could no longer overlook the indications. One evening, she faced Oji as her children frolicked in the yard. "What is going on, Oji?" she inquired, her tone tinged with doubt. 3 months have passed now. I have been providing meals for you and your children, and even your husband joins us for food. Behold your vehicles. Where is his car, and what's keeping you from returning to the city?" Oji let out a heavy sigh, her eyes brimming with tears. She averted her eyes, steering clear of her mother's intense stare. "Mama," she began, her voice quivering. "Everything has been taken from us. Tobe is a con artist. He became entangled in some questionable dealings and was apprehended. He found himself confined, with his accounts rendered inaccessible. We were compelled to part with all our possessions, our cars, our home, everything to cover his expenses. At this point, we find ourselves without any other options." In that moment, Yujide released a piercing cry, her hands flailing dramatically above her head. "Yuo, I have completed my task. Hey, what have I done to myself?" She moved restlessly, her expression contorted with anguish. "You mentioned that your husband's wealth is endless." "It's done, Mama," Oji said, her tears streaming down her cheeks now. Yujide sank onto the stool, her hands cradling her head. "Hey, I'm starting over from the beginning. I don't have Chuma's contact information or her husband's either. What are the ways we can endure? Yet, we failed to show her the kindness she deserved." She erupted into tears, her head shaking as waves of regret engulfed her. As time passed, the circumstances deteriorated further. As provisions dwindled, an air of unease settled over the cramped dwelling. The once strong connection between Yujide and Oji started to fracture beneath the burden of their misfortunes. Daily disputes broke out, saturating the compound with heated voices. "You need to leave my house and return to your husband," Yujide exclaimed one morning, her voice brimming with exasperation. "I'm going nowhere, Mama," Oji retorted, her voice quaking with fury. "You have completely destroyed my existence. If I had heeded Chuma's advice, I wouldn't find myself in this situation." "You're just being foolish," Yujide retorted. "Observe Chuma. She possesses remarkable wisdom. She was determined and achieved her desires. Azubike is a prosperous individual engaged in legitimate enterprises within the city." As she directed an accusatory finger towards Oji. "You have tied the knot with a swindler." Oji gazed at her mother in disbelief, struggling to comprehend the words being spoken. "You pushed me, Mama," she wept. "You encouraged me to marry him, and you reveled in all the ill-gotten gains alongside us. You urged me to tie the knot with Tobe." Yujide waved her hands dismissively, caught in a snare. "So what does it matter? Would you place your hand in fire if I asked you to? You are an adult, Oji. Your lack of understanding is a result of your own choices." Oji felt a powerful rush of anger, overwhelming him like a crashing wave. "You possess a magical essence, Mama. You possess a wickedness. You are the most terrible mother imaginable. Yujide dismissed her with a theatrical shake of her head. Greetings. My only regret, she said, her voice growing more intense, is that I didn't treat my wise daughter with the care she deserved. My beloved, Ogum. Choma, my radiant light, I hope she finds it in her heart to forgive me someday. Oh. Oji gazed at her mother, a mix of disbelief and fury swirling within her chest rising and falling with the weight of her emotions. In the bustling city, Choma's existence alongside Azubike was filled with sheer joy. He adored her and honored her like royalty, making certain that each day overflowed with affection and joy. Their home radiated warmth and welcome, a striking difference from the chill she had faced in her mother's house. Choma chose to step away from her mother for a while. She required time to recover from the years of emotional turmoil that Yujide had caused her. She understood that forgiveness for her mother would come in time, maybe even sending her food and money occasionally, but she resolved never to let Yujide return to her life in the role of a mother. She is terrible at it, Choma reflected with frustration. Unbeknownst to Choma, her anxieties about Oji had manifested into reality. The opulence and grandeur Oji had once displayed had vanished, leaving behind only struggle and sorrow. The sister who once ridiculed and demeaned her now found herself fighting for survival, ensnared in the same cycle of anguish that Choma had battled so fiercely to break free from. Hey friends, thank you so much for tuning in to this incredible tale. I truly hope you found it as enjoyable as we did while creating it. Please share your lessons in the comments below, and remember to subscribe. If you haven't subscribed yet, please click the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay updated on our latest stories. Kindly like and share this video with your loved ones. Thank you immensely for your support and affection. Your support means the world to me, and I truly can't express my gratitude enough. For now, I must depart and look forward to our next tale together. Farewell.